Okay. Hey, okay, so we have obviously, this is our second, I don't even know what we're calling this kind of podcast,
Poppins, the Poppins podcast.
Poppins podcast, where something happens in pop culture that we like can't stop talking about amongst ourselves. And so we just decided to record a conversation about it. The last one we talked about Alex Morgan and all the discourse around like women in sports and particularly like motherhood as it relates to sports. But this time we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift's new album, The Tortured Poets Department, the
So this
anthology.
album released on Friday, it released midnight Eastern Friday, followed up with the second album that released 2 a.m. that same morning. So at this point, we've had Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's Monday mid-afternoon to learn this album, understand this album, listen to this album, try to find a foothold amongst the 31 songs and a framework or a lens through which we can view this work as fans of Taylor. My first question, what I'm curious to hear about you about is favorite songs.
Yeah. Well, far and away, my favorite song, which I'm very pleased about because it was a song I was most looking forward to, is But Daddy, I Love Him. Just because of my deep history with The Little Mermaid, I literally have the VHS of The Little Mermaid sitting on my desk at all times because I resonate a lot with that story. Um, and like now I identify parts of my worldview that I feel like were reinforced by that Disney version of the story. Um, and so it's like it was like chef's kiss for me, all the things I love just coming together. So, but Daddy, I love him. So Long London, I feel like is the song that's the most stuck in my head. Just because some of her lyrics are like absolutely heart shattering and I cannot stop thinking about them. I really like Love of My Life again, which is like so typical for me. It's just like I love to be emotionally devastated. That's like my baseline for how I'm moving through the day. So when a piece of art can like meet me on that level and is like completely taking itself seriously, I'm like, yes, this is we need this in our lives. I think those are kind of the ones that are standing out. I love Cassandra. I don't know how we're pronouncing it, but because of yeah, kind of like the mythology that she incorporates and using, I mean, Cassandra is like an archetype of a woman whose voice was stifled and she was right. So love the themes that are kind of coming out through that mythology. Um, so yeah, those are kind of the ones that are standing out to me. What about you?
I love how you and I interact with her content at like a basic level in just two completely opposite ways. I'll never forget, I think it was a TikTok I saw that said for every Midnight's girly, Reputation girly, 1989 girly, there is like a folklore evermore red best friend, and this is an inseparable bond that cannot be broken. And it like represents you and I so perfectly. Like that axiom is 100% true for this duo. So for me, the songs that I think will emerge as favorites in terms of I will put them on my playlist, I will go back to them over and over again, I'll play them in my car, I'll play them with my children. Well, maybe I won't. We could get there. I don't think this is really an album to listen to with my daughters. So that's maybe something we can back burner. But I really love sonically Guilty as Sin and So High School. To me, those are just Taylor Swift pop songs that you put on, drive the car, roll the windows down. There are songs about Guilty as Sin is like a song about desire. So High School is a song about
Travis?
Travis Kelsey. No, I mean it's a song about those first few
Yeah.
initial um moments when you're in love with a person. So there's not a ton of like depth connected necessarily lyrically in either of
Yeah.
those songs. Although obviously like every Taylor Swift song works at like several different levels. I'm also enjoying Fortnite, which is like the lead single.
Yeah.
Um, Down Bad, which I've seen so many great memes about, like twerking and crying to Down Bad. And then you and I like are meeting on So Long London because that song has such a catchy refrain, but and we'll get to it like later in the conversation. There are so many layers to that song in terms of where it is on the album, the way that it's been so thoughtfully produced to tell a story or to like bookend a story that we've all been curious about for like 6+ years. The lyrics are incredible, they're heartbreaking, but the song sonically is absolutely gorgeous. So it's just doing a lot with your mind, which I think is Taylor at her best. So I would say for me, like those are the highlights. It's really tough that this is a 31 song album because there's some songs in this on that list that like I've only probably listened to even once or twice at this point.
Yeah. It's hard. I still feel like I'm really like trying to grasp, like get my arms around like the entire
I'm not
thing,
off
the
book
entire.
yet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because I really like Clara Bow. I didn't bring that one up. Um, and also I like I Hate It Here, which we'll talk about more later. I kind of feel like, yeah, I hate it
I'm
here, even
curious
though,
your
yeah.
thoughts on Clara Bow and like why that song is in this collection. And it's interesting because I like to think of the songs in the two albums the way that she dropped them. And Clara Bow is on the first album. It's like closes out the first
Yeah.
album.
Hmm.
And it's not the subject matter is not the same as all of the previous songs that came before it, which pretty much to a song are describing this extremely intense period in Taylor Swift's life, which is like a fortnight. I mean, it was like a really short time last
Hmm.
spring. And then Clara Bow is like lucky. She's so lucky.
Totally.
It's like
Yeah.
that. It's that song. So I'm curious, like, why do you think it was important for her? I agree, it's a cool song. I love, obviously, the allusion to Stevie Nicks, but like, why did she put it on here?
Well, we'll get into this later, but I feel like this is another difference between you and I, which is that I like immediately I engage with her art on like an extremely deep allegorical level about like what her art is saying about the world that we live in and like especially like our place as women in the world. And I think her critics, many of her critics, point to like she's talking about her experience as a white woman only, and also a white woman with like an extraordinary amount of power, wealth, and privilege. And like, that's fine. I can acknowledge that while also being like, yes, and there's something extremely valuable for me personally about being able to like really see myself in her art and see I think for all women, well, anybody except for like white men in this patriarchal society that we live in, we're all grappling like with our own sense of agency. And I think there's something like really heartbreaking and also really validating to see like even Taylor Swift wrestles with her own agency in her own life. And I don't even know that she's like fully conscious to that struggle. But I do feel like there are moments, and this is the piece that I'm working on writing for um, my website. So I'm not going to get into that aspect of it. But I do feel like there are these moments where she becomes a little more conscious of things, and then other moments where I feel like she doesn't see it, or at least she's showing us that she doesn't see it. It's hard to like know how much is masterminded and like what kind of real life experience she's having versus like what she chooses to show us. But in Clarabow, I feel like that's like a very clear-eyed view of fame and like of herself as like a cultural icon, I guess.
One, the thing that sticks out to me about Clairvaux so vividly is the line, "You look like Taylor Swift," but she says, "but with a little more edge." And it's in
Right.
the voice of like music industry executives telling the next up and coming singer-songwriter, look, everything Taylor Swift did and got and had, and the success and the prominence we can do with you, but even more because you have something she didn't have. You're even a little more special because you're edgy. And the way that she picked edginess to represent that idea actually makes me
Hmm.
feel like sad for her because she's been so self-conscious her entire career about how uncool she is.
Yeah.
And she says that over and over, and she always has in like many, many interviews over time. I'm not edgy, sexy, or cool, but I'm
Yeah.
really creative and I work really, really hard. And I want to
Yeah.
carve out a space in pop culture where like girls like that get to shine. And
Yeah.
I'm a girl that has had, in my own small way, some success trading on coolness, who has come in the midpoint of her life to realize like that's not really that valuable anyway. Um, and it just kind of breaks my heart a little bit. I think hopefully, I hope she's to the point where she's healed that piece of herself that felt like she ever needed to be edgy or cool or sexy to begin with. And she can like appreciate what she's been able to create out of the gifts that she did have. But it is sad to think about another woman up and coming being spoken to in that way and not just being able to like stand on her own merits or the own talent she has, but having to like be an inheritor of something, but like do it even better and in a way that's like somehow even more appealing. It
Hmm.
just was like really striking to me that that was the journey that she like took the listener on in Clairvaux.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like a very, or like I said, clear-eyed reflection on what it means to be famous, and how you do, again, like Taylor Swift is operating at a level that like no one will ever operate at, like in terms of you and me, right? But still, there's this relatability of um, trying to like be something, you know, and not feeling like it's enough to just be yourself. And there's a lot of pressure for women to be a certain way. Um, so I think it's interesting that that's how she ended this album, um, because I don't know. I just feel like it feels like a very definitive statement on how she sees her career and herself as like a cultural icon and what that means, in like a greater way for our society and fame and pop culture and all that. So I think as the final song on the album, I feel like it works as like
Yeah.
this kind of a final statement here.
And it also opens up to the second side or disc in the anthology. It's so hard now with streaming to know like in a physical sense how we're supposed to sort the two collections of songs. But the back half of this album, the anthology, is what she called the second drop of songs, are more in the vein of folklore and evermore, in that often they are telling stories about characters that are not directly Taylor Swift. They're not the introspective confessional songwriting that she does, although I think there's clearly a lot of connections to her personal life. Like, So High School is absolutely the story she wants to tell us right now about her relationship with Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it moved Clara Bow like bridges between this set of
Mm-hmm.
songs that's like a manic fever dream of a really intense period in her life. And then Clara Bow bridges us into like an extended universe where she like opens up her topic selection and her narrative and thematic selection a little bit more and like lets new characters in, like Cassandra, Peter
Peter
Pan.
Pan. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Aaron
Volk.
Dessner's kid named Robin.
Yeah, I don't know, like, where all of these characters are coming from necessarily. And I definitely think there's still probably stuff on here that was like B-sides to the material that she worked on for the first part of this album that got thrown on the backside, like Marcus and Sam, whatever that song is like
Yeah,
clearly
yeah.
you know, other people's presences like disrupting the relationship that you wish was happy, like whatever that really feels like echoes of what she's focusing on in the first part of this album. But in
Hmm.
general, she wants us to enter into a kind of fairy tale world with her where she's like allowed for a moment to tell us like more stories other than here's what happened between me and Joe and me and Maddie.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely reminiscent more of like, the love triangle on Betty and
Yes,
August and whatever the third song in that.
the cardigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, from folklore. Okay, so is there anything that you would take off this album? Anything you would delete?
Um, I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm not a fan of Fresh Out the Slammer, which is more because I feel so embarrassed anytime she like refers to a man as like pretty baby. I just can't. And I've been consistent with that. Like King of My Heart, like it's just a no for me. I can't. So I don't love that song. Um uh, from the first album, that's the only one that I'm like delete. From the second, I don't care about I'm gonna get you back. Something about like crashing your Aston Martin. Um, how did it end? I can't even like think about how that song goes. I look in people's windows, fine to get rid of. I could get rid of Peter. Yeah, I think those are mine.
I agree with a lot of yours. I would get rid of the one about, yeah, I'm gonna get you back. Don't need that one. I would I would get rid of Thank You, Amy.
It doesn't really fit. It it fits as like a follow-up to her song Mean, I
Yes.
think.
And I
But
didn't
other
like
than
Mean.
that, I like Mean. I can get into Mean
I think
sometimes,
Mean
but
is incredibly catchy songwriting. And for a person to have been so young and to write a song like Mean, I've always respected it. But
is that
I
on
don't,
Speak Now?
yeah, yes.
I think so. Yeah.
But I don't need Taylor Swift in grudge mode. I've been very consistent about that over the years. Like
Yeah.
other than oh, the one on folklore that she wrote about her record label,
What?
about um I can go anywhere I want,
Oh
just
yeah.
not home. What is this is me? Is it this is me trying?
No. Oh my gosh. I can only hear the bridge now. I
You
have to look it
can't
up.
pour my heart go for blood, but you will still
In
miss
your
in
bones.
your
Eh.
bones. I
It's My
still
Tears Ricochet. My
my
Tears
tears ricochet.
Ricochet.
Other than my tears ricochet, because one, I think that is an extremely valid grudge to hold on to, and two, that song, like that's some of the best songwriting I've ever heard in my
Oh,
life.
oh my God. And if I'm dead to you, why are you at the wake cursing my name, wishing I stayed? Like I will never get over that.
And
That's
if
a good,
you can't
that's
sleep at night, you'll hear my stolen.
okay. That song, that one speaks to the ex-church girlies for sure.
I
Like just
think that
stop,
one,
like
there's
get my
so many
name
ways
out
to
of your
conceive
mouth.
it.
Like
Yes.
just forget
Yeah.
about me.
Move
It's
on
fine.
from me. Stop being so obsessed with me after you like betrayed me and left me for dead,
But the
basically.
funny thing is, you, by singing this song, are like doing the same thing that you're accusing them of doing. Wait, but do
Yeah,
you
but
like vigilante
the
shit?
power dynamic is
Yeah,
different.
yeah. Do you like
Okay.
vigilante shit? Because that's along the same vein. Or
I
Midnights.
don't that one is I'm like neutral on it because also I feel like vigilante shit kind of varies its perspective in terms of like who it's referencing. And I'm like, I don't really care about Scooter Braun, so that's fine. But I do think like I wish in general she could like leave some of this grudgy stuff in the past, she'll like all, and she doesn't claim that she can. Like every time she
Yeah.
says a phrase, she's always like, I'll bury hatchets, but I'll keep my maps. Or I can forgive, but I'll never forget. And it's like, okay, that's just a piece of your personality that like I don't personally resonate with, whether it's just not a part of mine or whether I've never felt permission before to be angry about like a betrayal. That's just not for me a place where I feel like super comfortable going with her or enjoy going with her. So I think we could get rid
You
of
don't
thank
need that from her.
you. We could get rid of
Yeah.
I people's windows. Um, I don't want, I don't like that you said you need to listen to How Did It End again because
Okay.
bad
Sorry.
girl
I
song,
just
right?
literally couldn't remember how it went or any of the lyrics. So,
Yeah, that's okay. You'll listen to that and you'll
oh, well, it
remember.
is we hereby conduct this postmortem. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll keep that one.
Okay, that one. Okay. So, okay. So what
Wait,
I
do you like Peter? I think Peter's so dumb.
Peter to me feels like a songwriting exercise. Like you'd go to a songwriting class and they'd be like, okay, pick a fictional character to like write like a third
Champion.
person
Yeah.
perspective song about. And she aces the exercise because
Yeah.
she's an incredible songwriter. But I don't, people are like,
Need
oh,
that.
what's the song about? Is it about Maddie? Is it about, and I'm like, it's not about anyone in her life. She literally was just challenging her song to write, like, or herself to write a
Well,
song from
and it
Wendy's
is a
perspective.
callback to folklore because she has the line about Peter chasing Wendy. I knew
Yes.
you. Yeah. When you
Yeah.
were young. Oh, no, wait. What's that from? When you were young, they pretend you know nothing. Is that from folklore? It has to be.
Isn't that Cardigan? Yeah, that's
Oh,
Cardigan.
yeah. 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 Okay. So
So it's
it's
in the same
again,
universe of songs as that triad from folklore,
but I
which is
just
fine.
didn't need it on this album. I really didn't. That's
Um,
just me.
there's a rumor that the back half of the Tortured Poets department that many of these songs were meant to be a third
On,
album
yeah.
in the folklore Evermore, and then there was one more called Woodvale that was supposed to kind of complete that triad that never was released. And Swifties always like to act like that Taylor Swift has a million albums that she's almost released and shelved, but it does seem to me like some of these fit in that mode. Like the fact that she referenced Peter and Wendy on Folklore and then wrote a song in Wendy's perspective about Peter for potentially Woodvale, like would make sense to me that that's where some of these songs
Yeah.
came
Totally.
from. Okay, so
Okay.
zooming back out, I think on the Tortured Poets department, Taylor Swift is taking great pains to very clearly connect herself to the romantic era of poetry. She wants us to believe that she is working in that lineage, which is a project that she started establishing all the way back from 1989, if not before.
Yep.
The song New Romantics was a bonus track on 1989
Mm-hmm.
that many fans consider like one of her best songs from that era. I think she could also be referencing the new romantic movement, which was like a youth culture movement in the 1980s, which, I think in a lot of Taylor's work, many references can work several different ways. So it could be
Mm-hmm.
both. But then where she really has done this strongly in the past is on the bonus track, The Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
She says, take me to the lakes where all the poets went to die. And that is a direct reference to the Romantic poets in the UK during that era, which was roughly 1800s to 1850s. And it's also like an era of poetry that you definitely learn about in AP literature.
Yeah. We were talking about this yesterday.
Especially um the poem in question that is really relevant to this album, which is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, initially
Mm-hmm.
published in 1798, then revised and republished in 1817. It is widely considered and taught to be like the first major work from the Romantic era. And her song, The Albatross, is a
Right.
direct reference to this poem. And in some ways, The Albatross is one of like the linchpins of this body of work for Taylor.
Yeah. Right. And it's like the phrase is like that. There's like a phrase like an albatross around my neck is like an idiom, I guess.
which comes from this poem.
But yeah, and it's like weighing you down. It's something that's weighing you down.
And she, in the albatross, is warning a lover. Some people are
Hmm.
saying like this is the third song on the album, So High School, The Alchemy, and then The Albatross that like directly was written about or for Travis Kelce, just warning him like, I am here to destroy you. No one can bear up under the weight of me, the albatross, and the havoc and chaos and destruction that I bring into your life and any other lover's life that I've attempted to couple myself with over my, 20-year career, which is really sad.
Well, yeah, and you and I talk a lot about the song Peace, which is from the last song on Folklore, which I love that song. Like that's probably in my top five favorite Taylor Swift songs. I think it's just a really beautiful song. And I think I relate to it a lot on a personal level. And this is what I'm going to write about more, but it's about, I was telling you yesterday, like, what if, my like big working thesis about Taylor's, at least, let's say folklore and forward is like her basically in and out of relationships, which she was obviously doing this before. But the Joe relationship was so significant because it was long. And also she was like very much out of the private eye for a long time. Partly, I think, starting out because she wanted to be after all the Kanye stuff. But then, it seems like it became like what Joe wanted. And anyway, I feel like she's constantly asking herself, like in the song Peace, she asks, would it be enough if I could never bring you peace? And ostensibly, like she's asking Joe that. But I've been thinking about like just wrestling with your own sense of identity inside of relationships and even your own relationship with yourself, right? Like, who am I outside of like me in this relationship or me, who this man wants me to be, or who, as Taylor Swift, like who people want Taylor Swift to be, how they want Taylor Swift to behave, what they want Taylor Swift to like use her voice for. And like, is it enough to just be me? Um, yeah, and that kind of goes back to like your thing about she's never felt sexy, edgy, cool. And like, is that enough? Um, do, can I just exist like outside of any roles that I play for anybody or for society?
Well,
And
and she's hung
so
an albatross around her own neck. Like
with
she
her own,
actually, with her own
yeah,
success and the things that she wanted that she then got,
yeah,
are a burden to her in some ways. And she addresses that directly on this album. She says, my good name is mine alone to disgrace, which I see as a shot directly at her fan community, which she
yeah,
is typically extremely
yes,
gracious
gracious toward,
towards
yeah,
and thankful towards, and
and
she
generous, yeah.
generous, and she goes out of her way to thank her fans for propelling her career and allowing her to earn the things that she's earned and have the experiences she's had. But on this album, there's several places where she says, like, I get to live on my own terms, regardless of what you all hope for me or want for me, which, I mean, when she was dating Maddie Healy, I did think that was a bad, like a bad decision for her. I didn't want her to be doing that. And I was
Yeah.
one of those fans that was like, this is dumb and it makes me angry with you.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like as much as she's the albatross around Travis Kelce's neck, which, whatever, we don't have to get into the Travis of it all, but I think maybe he's a partner who can handle it. She's burdened
Hmm.
herself in a way that like she might not be ready to face yet. And if she ever is, maybe we'll get a triple album about it.
I hope so. Yeah, I was just like scrolling through the lyrics of the Albatross to see how it fits in with my thesis.
Okay, so coming back around to this idea of Taylor as a romantic.
Yes.
Oh, the other place I think in the album where she takes really great pains to kind of link herself to the romantic tradition are the way that she's been dressing her street style for like the last half of the year is very like short pleated skirts, loafers, and crew neck sweaters. Honestly, she looks fabulous. Like every photo I see of her in this kind of template of an outfit. I wish that I was a 5'11"
Wearing
woman
that.
with like
Yeah.
long arms and legs. Yeah, and like beautiful, like mousy blonde, long hair and bangs. But to me, that's her giving off the vibe of like a lit major who's studying the classics at
Mm,
university. But then
hmm.
she kind of goes inside and becomes the subject of that study in the Fortnite music video, where she's dressed herself and Post Malone as a couple from the early 1800s. So there's this consistency across the album. Um, and I think my question is like, why does it matter to her if she's linked to that era of poetry? And is that simply like an aesthetic affectation, or is she trying to communicate something deeper to us by taking such great pains to say like, hey, I'm a romantic poet, I'm a new romantic, and here's my tortured poetry?
I don't know. Like I'm like I do I need to go take a college level course on the romantic era? Like,
Yeah.
because
Maybe.
I had, yeah, like, I mean, let's see if there's like some open, what's it called? Like open university course or something.
Yeah, open. Oh yeah, like how Stanford sometimes lets you like virtually shadow a class. Yeah, we should do
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm not educated enough to like really understand. I literally hadn't thought of the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner since like I was a junior
yeah,
in high
same.
school. So I don't know. I literally don't know. Like, I need to know more about the Romantics, like as a group, as like a body of work, as a period of time in which artists were creating, which maybe I could have done before we got on this call. But
Okay, so the other reason that it's relevant to our conversation, outside of just being like interesting to dissect why that's so important to her to be associated with, is that it directly connects to one of the songs on the album that I think you and I are like the most gagged by, basically, which is I Hate It Here,
mhm.
which is also the song that is stirring up controversy for its lyrics.
Yeah, really quick, I do want to say, um, I don't know. One thing that we have not brought up yet on this conversation, which I think is actually really core to Taylor, is she's like extremely earnest, and that is not cool. And that's something that I love about her because I'm extremely earnest and it's not cool. And I feel like that's something that I have to temper in myself. Because if I mean, I can just think of so many times in my life where, like, especially around my creativity, where like I just hold myself back because I'm like, I know this is not going to be cool. So, like, I'm not going to do it or say it. And so I don't know if maybe there's something there with the romantics, but like even there are things that, well, besides like the pretty baby thing, there are lines that Taylor does where I'm just like, girl, like, and in the lakes, there's one of those, which I love it because it's so extra, but she says, those Windermere peaks seem like the perfect place to cry. It's like, literally, who says that? But maybe the romantics say stuff like that, and I just don't know because,
I think you bring up a good point, which is that we live in an era of like detached irony, where
yeah,
obviously like edgy, sexy, and cool, her little trio that she always repeats is the currency for women to get ahead.
yeah,
And maybe she's wishing and projecting backwards to a time in art when just kind of like bald earnestness was like the mode to work in.
yeah.
Um, and thinking to herself, like, wow, I would have really been releasing
I would
some
have,
bangers back in
I would have felt so much
1850.
better. Well, what about, I don't even know, this could be like a total rabbit trail, but like the importance of being earnest, when was that published?
I
That's
think
Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde
Later.
later, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that just came up for me as like a, yeah, well, that's
So
1895. So it's later, but it's not that far.
that does loop us back around though to I Hate It
Yeah,
Here.
the song. Yeah, the song.
She's sitting there thinking in her mind, like, wow, my brand of earnestness would have gone over like so well with the romantics. And so, and I Hate It Here.
Yeah.
The reason it stirred up controversy is because she's describing a game that she and her friends sometimes play where they talk about what era of history would you want to go back and live in? And she says the 1830s, except for
Without all
the
the racists.
racism
Yeah.
and the sexism,
Getting married off for the highest bid.
which I don't. Okay, so this is where my gripe is with her, the way she's expressing this thought, which is actually a very nuanced and weird idea, more complex of an idea than like the internet dialogue around this lyric would want you to believe. I
Hmm.
don't think she's expressing any of this with precision, which is why I think people are misreading her. Um, but basically, I hear her saying that there's no time in history that a woman or anybody other than a white man would or should want to go back to.
Yeah. Well, she says later, a little bit later, nostalgia is a mind's trick. If I'd been there, I'd hate it. It was freezing in the palace.
Yeah, which I also think they weren't living in palaces in 1830, so that also I think is imprecise.
Well,
They were living in
but
like
also,
Victorian
mm,
houses.
I know, but like it kind of reveals like how she's thinking of herself. Like probably was somebody was I mean like the Queen of England was living in a palace, so is that who she thinks of herself as? Which I think is a I can understand why people are criticizing this, right?
It's really, it's, I think, a very interesting thought that could have been like illuminating that ended
Yeah.
up being like really clunky and distracting because she's like not communicating it well.
Well, and I think the main point of critique is like she's literally never like said a peep about racism or like any of the movement for like Black liberation, right? Or liberation of any oppressed
Liberation for
peoples,
anybody.
except for like feminism,
Yeah,
like
kind of for herself.
so white feminism. So like again, it's fine. Like the reason why I never identify myself as a Swiftie is like first of all, I don't get into like the Taylor Swift of it all in terms of like who's she dating and who's the song about. It's like fine. I'm interested in it on like a very minimal level, but I really love her art. So I don't really know where that puts me. But also like she's not above criticism for me. Like I even have been like, I really wish she would like speak out about Palestine. Like you and I have had that conversation before. So I think people are just mad. Like, why did you? And I see the point. I'm like, honestly, it probably would have been better for her if she just would have stuck to her script, which is like how it's bad for women, because that's like what she talks about. In any of like her moments of like activism, it's typically and gay people. Like she does stand for the LGBTQ community largely.
And the reason I think it's important for you and I to like unpack some of this is because aside from that, I Hate It Here is
An amazing song.
an amazing song that I think transcends anything to do with Taylor Swift's personal life and cuts right to the heart of the experience of most modern women
Yeah.
who work so hard to find their place in any system, whether it's like the system that you and I came out of, which is like patriarchal religion, Christian, white Christian evangelicalism, or inside of a marriage, or
Hmm.
inside of a, a career, like whatever
Right.
it is,
Corporate America. Yeah.
the idea
Motherhood.
you are never being appreciated for who you actually are. Nobody really sees you. And the only escape you have is to go inside of yourself. And you hate it.
Literally, the line that I can't get over on the whole album is I hate it here. So I will go to secret gardens in my mind. People need a key to get to. The only one is mine.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the lyrics right now because I have one that when I heard it, I screenshot it and sent it to you immediately because I was just like, I can't believe that she just said this. This is like a thought from my own head. I'm lonely, but I'm good. I'm bitter, but I swear I'm fine. I'll save all my romanticism for my inner life. And it's just this acknowledgement of being lonely and resentful, but you either don't have any recourse to solve those problems for yourself, or you can't, or you won't. And so you just turn inwards to a fantasy life
You're
where
tired.
where you're, yeah, and you are the, I think it's two sides of one coin, because I think in the end you do have to belong to yourself, but this is like a form of going inwards that's escapism and not actual self-belonging.
Well, it's escapism and it's also like defeated, you're defeated. You feel defeated. And it's interesting because, again, we have no idea like Taylor Swift's actual experience of her life beyond what she shows us. But it was interesting because I fired off this post on Threads that was like kind of a joke, which you just shouldn't make jokes. People always want to fight you. But it was basically like, I put in quotation marks like, Joe Alwyn represents patriarchal structures and Taylor Swift represents women trapped in those systems. In this essay, I will dot dot dot. And like someone responded and was like, this is like taking away way too much agency from Taylor and putting too much on Joe. And also, Taylor doesn't need anyone to advocate for her. Like, there are real women who are oppressed and like need advocacy. And I was just like, first of all, you're no fun. Some things are just fun to say, but I won't make that mistake again. Okay, after I got over my like annoyance at like you're being a killjoy, I how I responded was like Taylor does not need anyone to advocate for her. Like absolutely. And she could write this song. So like I assume that even one of the most powerful women, in the system that we're in, like still has this experience that's like extremely depressing to me and also like validating, I guess. You know what I mean? Which is why I feel like her art speaks so much to me. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, she even gets that. You know what I mean?
I am not going to take the bait there, but
It's
I
fine.
think
People are so annoying.
it's okay, one, for Taylor Swift to have had that experience of her long-term relationship, if that is in fact the experience she had. Um, it's also interesting because on Midnights, there's a lyric that I've never really understood. Um, Something about discussing politics and gender roles. Can't
Mm.
remember which song that it's from. And I always just thought, like, LOL, who's in Taylor Swift's life that's even wanting to talk and challenge, not challenge, but like talk about gender roles in a way that's like restricting or confining to her. And it turns out it was Joe. Like, obviously, I feel like those fingerprints are all over this album. Like, there was some kind of gender role struggle between the two of them. But even if there wasn't, you as a listener, it's okay for you to interpret the music that way. That's good art.
Mm.
It's
Hmm. Yeah, I
literally
just looked up.
allowing you
Yeah.
to reflect your experience of the world onto the art.
Well, and whenever someone responds to me in a way that like I'm like, you are literally just committed to stealing my joy and misunderstanding me. Like I obviously have an initial response and I want to just be like fire off. And I like most of the time I'm like, I'm gonna like just stop and like take a couple breaths and just like return to this if I want, or I'm just gonna let it go. And so I was able to kind of go back to her and be like, it's okay for me to see my life reflected in Taylor Swift's art.
Otherwise, what are we all doing
What are
here?
we doing? She literally just when she released the album, she said like this is yours now. The story is yours now. Which is why I find it like so incredibly ironic that so many people are like obsessing over which guy is which and who's who. And I'm like, that's fine. Like it's somewhat entertaining, but also like I'm so interested in how I can feel like extremely seen in the ways that I feel trapped in my life by Taylor Swift, who literally has like every resource disposable to her. You know what I mean? Like that is wild and that's real. and that's on being like, you want to talk about like being a white woman, what I mean? Like you get caught. I was texting you yesterday, like, I feel like one of the tricks of being a white woman is like you're aligned with power in your whiteness, and then you're not with your femaleness. And so you're like in this kind of in between world, which is the experience that I had, especially growing up like Christian. So it's like I also had that privilege of growing up in like the dominant religion in our country. And when I finally like woke up to how the world is for so many people, like marginalized people groups, so many of my friends who like held these identities or had different intersections of identities were like, yeah, welcome to the world. Like this is how it
Right.
is. This is how it is for us. Like we're so glad you've joined us out here. Um, and like I don't think that Taylor's gotten there. Um, but there's a lot of layers like keeping her. It's the ways in which we are stuck in our areas of unawareness because of our privilege, right? But it's like she can identify that she feels trapped by her life.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's a good door into actually the narrative arc and perspective of this album, because I know that you are not a listener that particularly cares, and in fact often gets irritated by the very close read that fans want to give her work. And also I think Taylor encourages often.
Hmm.
I mean, she did not have to capitalize the K, the I, and the M on Thank You, Amy. Um, in terms of who is this song about and what's the exact situation, reading her lyrics like an AP news bulletin. And I'm a little bit more, as a pop culture and kind of like gossip culture girly, like a little more inclined to be interested in that side of her work. Um, but I have to say, I really expected the Tortured Poets Department and to basically be, to litigate her relationship with Joe, which was this 6 year relationship that was primarily clouded in mystery. They were rarely seen together in public. Um, he particularly refused to really speak on her in interviews. Um, because a lot of the relationship happened through the pandemic years, they didn't go to awards shows together. They weren't seen on red carpets together. Um, and I think he expected the album to be that way too, because a few weeks after she announced the project at the Grammys, there was an article that came out in, I think, the Daily Mail that was clearly from Joe's team. That basically it was a threat and a warning to Taylor. Like, Joe has been respectful about the way that he's spoken about this important 6 year relationship, and he expects Taylor to conduct herself in the same manner. And it
That's so
immediately made me
ugly.
really mad. One, my antenna went way up because I was like, what did this man do? Like, what's he so scared of? And two, I mean, it's writer in the dark vibes, which is my favorite way to describe the genre of like literature and art that's created by women who have been hurt by the men that they've loved. Writer in the Dark is a Lorde song. And
Hmm.
she literally tells her lover, like, bet you rue the day you kissed a writer in the dark. Like, you knew what you were getting into by getting involved with me. There was no way that I was ever going to take your bad behavior and not do anything other than transmute it into my creative expression. So, like, that's on you. And that's how I
Yeah.
felt about, Joe kind of getting
Joe.
his hackles
Yeah.
up and like trying to get ahead of the story. So I think like everyone felt that way about this album. And I have to tell you, I think amongst her fans, there was like this collective like hysteria and confusion, um, because it's not what this album is about narratively. It does
Right.
not tell the story really of the dissolution of her 6 year relationship, or at least not how I think people expected it to be, which is like the TikTok of like, and here's the song about when I found out you cheated on me, and here's the song about when I
Yeah.
left you the first time, and here's a song about why I went back to you, and here's a song about why I left you the second time. That's not what this album is. This
Yeah.
album is really about the identity crisis she had when she got out of like a 6-year relationship that to like most of the world kind of looked like propriety, looked like the type of relationship that someone of Taylor Swift's status should have, and got into a 2 week, I guess, a fortnight, a very short
Yeah.
situation
Or was it a 10-year? Yeah.
with someone that had a lot of impropriety, and she behaved in ways that were like reckless and chaotic. She gambled with her good name, she gambled with her career, she gambled with her huge theme for Taylor Swift, reputation. For this person, come to find out, she'd been pining for him for maybe a decade. We obviously don't know anything other than what she wants us to know, but like that's the story that we're led to believe. And a lot of the songs work regardless of whether you think they're about Joe, who she was with for 6 years, or Maddie, who she's with for 2 weeks,
Who
because
knows?
they both did the same thing to her ultimately, which was lead her to believe that they were in love with her and accepted her unconditionally. And then, in a slow, protracted, and painful way, took back those promises, or in a very quick way,
Hmm.
just ghosted and said, never mind. Like it was the same journey on two different timelines, I think. And she needed to find out, like, why do I keep letting this happen to me? And I think the song that speaks the most strongly to that narrative in a clean way is So Long London,
Hmm.
because you hear the initial lyric or the initial sonic, the soundscape opens with like a choral um, arrangement that sounds like wedding bells. And then immediately there's this synth trill that is mimicking the synth trill from Call It What You Want. And in Call It What You Want, that was the initiation of her relationship with Joe, in which she
Hmm.
tells us, her public, that she needed to run away. She didn't need someone to save her, but she asked him if he would go with her. And that's what they did. They got out of the United States, they went to London, they established a life there, and we really didn't hear from her for a very long time after that.
Which, side
And
note, I've never liked that song because she says my baby's built like a daydream and it
my
embarrasses me.
baby
Oh my
built
God.
like a daydream.
It's so embarrassing.
I love Call It What
You
You Want.
never talk about your husband as your baby though.
Well, that's fine. I'm a cool girl, so I'm never gonna be that earnest about my husband.
Call my husband my baby, even if I thought like I'm not gonna do it because it's cool. Like I don't know, man. I can't. But okay.
Okay,
Sorry. I
so
just
that
had to
was
say
like
that.
her, that was what she wanted us to know about Joe 7, 8 years ago when she like first introduced us to this character in her life, of like, this person and I fled to London together because he supports me, he loves me unconditionally, he doesn't care about my reputation, he doesn't care about
Hmm.
my past or what other
Hmm.
people are saying about me. And then So Long London like literally bookends that journey for her, where she is coming back, she's returning to her homeland
Hmm.
because it didn't work out. And I just think that from a sonic perspective, that's an absolutely incredible way to close the loop on that relationship. And also from a narrative perspective, like, now looking back, I think it's really funny that the fans were so rabid to get this like clear timeline of like how her relationship with Joe dissolved, because what she really wanted to tell us is like, that actually doesn't matter. Like the details do not matter. What matters is what it did to me inside, and how I keep repeating that same pattern over and over again, thinking that I'm escaping, but really just like more deeply entrenching myself in pain. And so I think from a narrative perspective, that's where I like landed with the album, but it took me a while to kind of accept like, we're not going to get a lot of insider information about what was going on for her in those 6
Hmm.
years.
Although I will say, I feel like at some point over the last year, like once we all realized, like Joe and Taylor, well, we don't actually know, but like they announced that they had broken up on April 8th of last year. And everyone was kind of like, they probably were actually already broken up before that, but that's just the way that PR works. So then I think a lot of people then started this process of like, oh, like is was Midnight's the breakup album about Joe? Like, what about different songs, like even from like Folklore, Evermore, like Tolerate It, like, so I think fans have done their own work of like piecing together things about the relationship from songs. And it's actually interesting to see now fans are doing like the same thing with, now that we know more about like the Maddie Healy of it all. Like now people are like going back and being like, oh, is this song about Maddie? Which again, I engage with just because it like comes across my timeline, but I don't really care. Um, but it is kind of, I mean, I understand that it's like fun to think about. Like pop culture is fun. I get it.
I mean, one of her skills is that she's able to keep us curious about her personal life, which makes drives us to her work. And I think that is a fact that people try to level at her as a criticism. But I think there's honestly probably no other way. I mean, Beyonce is able to do it because she's been with the same partner for since I think
Yeah.
'03 for 20 years. But there's
Mhm.
really no other way for someone to be as successful of a pop musician without making like an extra textural narrative and like allowing the fans to like apply it to your work.
Mhm.
So, and Taylor is in some ways like the best at doing that.
He's the
And
mastermind.
she's the mastermind. So I feel like narratively, that's what we got. Like we were expecting one thing and then we ended up with this instead, which is like a lot of songs about how Maddie Healy like messed with her mind and she's sad about it.
Hmm.
And thankfully, from a thematic perspective,
She's
it
moved
gave us
on.
really rich material to
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah. Right. Which is what I am writing about. I'm still writing my piece that I'm going to put on my website, but it's basically about this idea that, like, as women, from a young age, we are told that our worth and value comes from our relationship with men and the roles that we play in society as they relate to men as well. And I think, we all buy into that to like varying degrees based on our life experience and personality, I guess. Um, but this idea that like for me, Taylor in and out of relationships and even like being in this relationship with Joe and then like rebounding into Maddie, like it's all a symptom of her desire to like find someone to belong to and someone that will understand her for just who she is rather than the roles that she plays. And that like my thesis is that she and also women um like will never find peace. So she asks, would it be enough if I could never bring you peace? And it's like there's this cliche like in the meditation community. It's like peace is an inside job, right? But it's like it's that quest for belonging is never going to bring you peace. It's not until you can like be your own secure attachment or whatever language you want to use, but like belong fully to yourself and validate your own experience fully, that you are going to like finally stop the quest to try to find someone to belong to. So if people are interested in that topic, that's what I'm writing about. So I don't really want to talk about it here because you can read it if you want to.
Yeah, I think thematically there's definitely that one. And then I know we both hear all over this album as little fundamental evangelical girlies, like the idea that you are raised for a specific purpose, find out that not only is that purpose not fulfilling to you, but also the people who raised you and put you in that position, like scorn you and are only interested in you as far as your utility to them and how much they can control you. And you're exiled, but you're sad about it because there were elements of that life that you loved. And you don't know where you can go that's going to accept you or fulfill you. outside of whatever system you thought you were like an inheritor of. I feel like that is a
Hmm.
theme on the album that is really strong throughout a number of tracks.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, there's it's interesting because there's lots of songs that speak to that theme with in lots of different ways with lots of words and in different tones. So like there's going back to my favorite, but Daddy, I Love Him. That song is probably the most on the nose of that theme. Um, I have the lyrics here. So yeah, she says, I just learned these people only raise you to cage you. Sarah's and Hannah's in their Sunday best, clutching their pearls, sighing, what a mess. I just learned these people try and save you because they hate you.
Because they hate
And
you.
then, yes, dutiful daughter, all my plans were laid, tendrils tucked into a woven braid. Growing up precocious sometimes means not growing up at all. Um, so yeah, I feel like that's very much on the nose about like when you leave the system, you're just like you're judged, you're misunderstood, you're seen as, like it's kind of a cliche now in the deconstruction community, like people still in these like more fundamentalist Christian circles will say like, well, the only reason why people deconstruct is because they want to sin. And it's just like hilarious because that's just not it, but that's like the narrative, it's like, or it's like, well, they were never, I think the thing that's so painful, and again, it goes back to this piece of belonging. It's like the first line of defense that conservative Christians will say is like, well, you were never actually a Christian. It's like, well, you were never actually a true believer. And then it's like people like me who are like, do you like need me to list out my credentials of how very much like of a true believer I was? And also, like, spoiler alert, I'm still a Christian. You just don't like the way that that's like manifesting in my life now.
Yeah.
So I kind of love that song for that reason. And it's a fun song. Honestly, it's like the most country sounding.
It's a very throwback.
Mhm.
Now, we live in a post Cowboy Carter world, and I can no
Yeah.
longer hear a song. Um, and I'm using Cowboy Carter as a genre that like Beyonce has like identified and like established forever
Yeah.
moving forward. I think of "But Daddy, I Love Him" as a Cowboy Carter song. It is like a perfect pop song that has deep country roots. Like it is to me like the pinnacle of kind of like the Taylor Swift sound. I think it's so funny because I wish there was space and time, even like literally time right now, to talk about the interplay between Beyonce and Taylor. And I wish those two women, in a way, had felt the freedom to like collaborate together on something for Cowboy Carter, because I think that if you want to talk about Beyonce's whole project of like expanding genre, reclaiming genre, whatever, like Taylor has also been on her own journey around that. And I think it
Hmm.
really sonically like arrives in But Daddy, I Love Him. I think
Yeah.
also to the point of like feeling like you have to leave but not wanting to. So Long London literally has a lyric that says, I'm just mad as hell because I loved this place for so long. And um,
That makes me want to cry too.
I just think like back to being these little fundy girls, and we did love it.
Yeah.
And
It was the world was made for us.
and there
We
was
were
such
princesses in that palace.
we were princesses in that palace, and there was such a sense of belonging and clear-eyed understanding of like where we fit inside of that system
Yep.
that I've never had again. And I can just resonate with the feeling of being like really mad that it's not going to work anymore, because it turns out like those people didn't actually have any interest in me for me.
And when we say those people, for me, it always feels important to say like it's the structure, it's the
It's the structure.
culture.
It's the
Because
structure.
because sometimes people will like come at me and be like, you're always talking about like your religious trauma. And I'm like, I've literally never said that. Like I had an idyllic childhood. Like
Yeah.
nobody hurt me and nobody was trying to hurt me. It's just that like the worldview itself, is inherently harmful for women. And
For
just need
everyone.
them. Yeah, well, for everyone. Obviously, like men are hurt in the system too, but it's easier for men to exist in a system that was like built for and by them. But here's us, you know,
Yeah,
I
we were
keep
so
this
happy.
picture. Yeah,
I
we
like
were in
remember, I literally remember like wearing those costumes and doing that.
we were in a Billy Graham crusade singing This Little Light of Mine. And were you like 9 and I was 7?
Yeah, something like
Probably. I think it was like 94. Um, I think it's hilarious that we our arms were there was no armholes. Like
that.
I feel like that means something, you know?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's going really long, but there's just like a couple more songs on the album. Who's Afraid of Little Me it's like interesting because you could like see it as like phases of deconstruction because like Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is like a much more of like a it's angry, but it's also like jubilant and like it's an anthem, you know what I mean? It's like a F you know, like you know, but there's some really
well,
great.
once they've taken out all your teeth, tortured you, and then killed you, and you're just a ghost hovering above it, like haunting everyone, there's not a whole lot for you to do other than just be like raucously chaotic. So I feel like that's such a cool song from the perspective of like, I have nothing left to lose.
Yeah, totally. Which you get to that point. You're just like,
Yeah.
I think after you go through all, you're like, can I stay? Like, can I keep constraining myself in order to fit into this world? And then you realize, and maybe some, I don't know, like people are all along the spectrum, and that's great for them. But I think I got to this point where I was like, I can't be me and stay. And she has this line that's like, they say they didn't do it to hurt me, but what if they did? Yeah, I want to snarl and show you just how disturbed this has made me. And I also feel like another song that is so speaks to, and also like she just draws on like religious imagery in Guilty as Sin, which you said you like. And I like that song too, but I think it's the bridge that says, what if I roll the stone away? They're gonna crucify me anyway. So again, it's a little bit like what I have nothing left to lose. Like I'm just going to be myself. And she says, what if the way you hold me is actually what's holy? If long suffering propriety is what they want from me, they don't know how you've haunted me so stunningly. I choose you and me religiously. It's just like perfect. I love all of those lyrics.
Also so interesting to think about these different traditions or like ways that certain songs in her discography relate to each other because I think that Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is like a sister to Mad Woman and
Mm.
also a sister to the Rebecca Harkness song from Folklore
Mm-hmm.
and Guilty as Sin is a sister song to False God on the Lover album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was
Um,
like, I had a few more. I think I just had one more. Well, we already talked about, obviously, I Hate It Here, but again, I feel like that song fits very well with this collection of songs in terms of like, yeah, feeling caged. Like the response that I feel like I can relate a lot to, which is like in this very restrictive culture, really retreating into like my interiority. And like for me that was also journaling. Like journaling was actually the place where I could be honest, even if there was like literally no other arena or even like relationship in which I felt like I could actually be honest about my experience. Like I could in my like I could always validate my own interiority, even though I also was very aware of like how I needed to be in order to stay acceptable in this culture. Yeah.
well, I have to
Um,
go, Nurse Stella.
okay. I think that's it. I mean, I feel like those are kind of all the like lyric points that I wanted to hit, but um, I felt like I wanted to talk about that here because I'm not gonna talk about it probably anywhere else. Um, and I think it's a fun. I mean, it's like a I don't know if fun is the right word, but it's a conversation that I think is worth having. So thank you.
Okay, well, we love you, Taylor.
And
And
we
you
don't like we can criticize you. We're fine. You
can
know,
we
it's
also
fine.
be? I criticize people I love. We are excited to hear your album on motherhood, should you ever have kids. We're excited to hear your perimenopause album. We're just
We're
on
with
this.
you to the death.
We're with you. Yeah, we're with
And we
you.
really hope you find yourself like, and you come to, I don't know, a place where you do feel like you belong to yourself and you don't have to like be anything other than exactly who and what you are. I feel like we should end with like the heart because it's like the Eras tour.
Okay, bye. Love you.
Bye. Love you.